Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome back to Down to Earth, our series of talks on Islamic concepts, where today we shall talk about the media and propaganda and the information society. A system, a political system, a governance system is built on three pillars. Allah explains that with the Pharaonic society when he says, wa Qarun, wa Haman, wa Fir'aun. These three people stand for three aspects of society. Qarun is the financer, the banker, deals with the economic system. Haman is the priest, the high priest, deals with the religion, the education, the general propagandistic aspect of society. And in the Pharaoh society, of course, the head of the religion was the head of the magicians, deals with the magic. And then Firaun, of course, the head of the political system and the military. So these three aspects of society are always present, and it is important that we recognize them so we can appropriately deal with them. And there are ways of dealing with them, of course. It comes to the financial system. We are taught, because Qarun got swallowed up, and there were those who wished they had his place, but later they wished they didn't. We should not be part of that financial system as far as we can. But we talk about the financial system at another occasion. The political system usually ends up in some sort of confrontation, a showdown of strengths. But as Allah says, how often has a small party overcome a big party by permission of Allah? And in the case of Musa alayhi salam, he let them down into what ended up to be a trap for them. With Allah's help, they were outsmarted and destroyed without the Israelites having the same sort of military prowess that the Pharaoh did. And the media system, the magicians, we defeat them by exposing them for what they are, a trick of illusion. You cannot beat them at their own game. Musa did not defeat their magic with his magic, but he actually exposed it for magic, because what Allah gave him swallowed it all up, and he kind of got rid of it altogether. And we took a short break to get rid of the goats as well, so we carry on. We now live in the age of the Dajjal system. And the Dajjal system has quite a powerful military. It is aiming for a united, powerful politics, because it is striving for world dominion, one world government. And it has its own kind of high-tech magic we call the media. We know from the early warning system of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that this time will come, and that the Dajjal, for example, will show you fire that doesn't burn and water that doesn't cool. That he has that ability to show you a reality that doesn't really exist. And whilst the one-eyed Dajjal, because this one-eyed business really means his blind on the spiritual side and only materialistic, which it is, totally denies the existence of Allah. But that one-eyed box that we have, the TV, really stands very well for it. The screen. In some places, you can see it, like in Milton Keynes, where I have spent many years. You have this kind of setup where you have a big screen in a sort of pyramid-shaped building front. You have this eye of the Dajjal, this single eye, looking over the town at what they call the escape. And the media want us to escape. The media want us to get away from reality into a world of illusion, distraction, entertainment, fantasy. From the start, the devil promised to mislead us. And Allah tells us that whatever the devil promises us is only an illusion. So the devil is the first and most powerful trickster. He knows how to give us false hope. He knows how to stir our desires. He knows how to distract us from our reality and what we should be doing, how to make us forget that we mortal and will die. Tries to make us think we could be eternal and in control. And the media are a tool to do exactly that. They are in the business of selling illusion. They are in the business of make-believe instead of real belief. They are in the business of distraction, of arousing desires, of diversification, entertainment. Whilst we are distracted, they can pursue with their agenda of building their dominion, their control state that watches over all. Allah watches over all, but they want to watch over all. They want to control all. Even in computing science, they're trying to create the super brain, the supercomputer, the superhuman. Accumulated human knowledge in the cloud, becoming so powerful that humans become gods. This is the age-old, oldest delusion the devil sells to us. That man can become godlike. Man can become divine. We don't need God. He restricts us. He limits us. He puts rules on us. He doesn't allow us to enjoy ourselves, whereas we could be free. So this whole talk of freedom, they talk of freedom, but they don't mean freedom for you and me to do what we want. They mean that they will free us from the bondage to Allah, whereas Allah frees us from the bondage to everything, and we are just in bondage to Him. They want to turn this round, so we are in bondage to them and free from any bondage to Allah. Freedom is a word that in itself means nothing. There is the freedom to do something, but it is limited by somebody else's freedom from having it done to them. These freedoms need to be negotiated. But as a buzzword, it sounds good. Freedom, liberty. I can do what I want. Of course I can't. And those who sell me freedom make sure I can't. They may sell freedom fries in America during the Iraq War, but at the same time they go to war against a country whom they don't want to do what they want, who have stepped out of line and whom they want to do what they are told to do. There is coercion, not freedom. They talk about democracy, words the Prophet ﷺ told us that words have magic in them. He actually used those terms, sihr, that we must be careful with words because words have some magic in them. Words are ideas that conjure a reality. It's the magician's trick. First there was nothing, suddenly there is something. Rabbit out of the hat. Words can do that. Words are very powerful. And if we read novels like 1984 by somebody who should know because he worked for them. Orwell worked for the British intelligence services, for what was still under the Foreign Office in those days. Double speak. The way to say something and mean something else. The media are masters of it. They have honed those skills for a long, long time. How to manipulate people through words. How to manipulate people through showing them, and with TV, the images are added to it and it becomes even more powerful. How to manipulate people by showing them a reality that doesn't exist. How to lie to people and make them believe it's the truth. How if you, like it was said, if you repeat a lie often enough, it will be perceived as the truth. And a lie runs 1,000 miles before the truth catches up. And there's so many sayings that they themselves have coined about this ability to impress people. Because when you look at a screen and you see things and you hear people talking, you think, well, must be true. But you don't see any context. You don't know what really happened. It could all be set up. And now we know with screen technology, and we see it in films. We can create a reality. It looks all very real, but it's all just a film. It's not real. The guy who gets shot, he'll act in some other role tomorrow. He dies in this film, tomorrow he's alive. It doesn't really have substance. It's an illusion. But we can do that. And now if we can do it in films, we can do it in the news. It's just another film. These days, we cannot establish the validity of news. Even in one village of Africa, if you hear news about another village of Africa, you hear it via the news agencies in London or Paris, before you hear anything directly. And so you don't get the clear picture. You have journalists sitting in comfy hotels talking about famine whilst they sip their tea and have their cake. We are constantly being lied to. Now, how do we deal with that? How do we deal, for example, with the fact that Islam is portrayed in a way that is intended to turn people away from Islam? Muslims are violent, oppressive, terrorists, narrow-minded, noisy, shouting, demonstrating, burning books. Don't want anything to do with those people, do we? Certainly not. But Muslims are not like that. But whom are you going to tell? Who's going to believe you? You're a Muslim and say, I'm not like that. You must be the exception because we've seen it on the news and on the internet. We found out all about you. You're not a proper Muslim if you're not like that. It's very powerful. How do we deal with it? Social media, Facebook, where you can have 1,000 friends whom you never meet and who won't come to your help when you need them. Twitter, where you can constantly go on about, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Look at me. Instagram. I don't know, I can't even remember all the names, since I don't have any of them. But, you won't find me there. But, very powerful. If you ask people I want you to tell me wherever you go, whatever you do, whomever you meet, whom you have a relationship with, please tell me so I can write it down. I said, are you mad? Why should I tell you? It's my private life. But you give them Facebook, and you don't even have to ask them. They do it for free. They say, I want to tell you, because they don't think they're telling somebody who's actually collecting this information. And that's what it is. It's a data mining tool. No, they're not just some data breaches where you get your private data. It was set up as a data mining tool. And you go and say, I want everybody to know what I'm doing. I want them to see. I want them to know what I had for breakfast. I want to be seen. I want to be famous. Look at me. The exhibitionist nature of people comes out and is utilized by them being able to see whom you connect with, who are your friends, whom you're talking to. You can analyze whole groups, whole societies. And we do it willingly because we think it's a tool for our benefit. So these media, this magic is extremely powerful. So how to deal with it? Firstly, only trust reliable sources. Don't get your information just from anywhere. You can't learn your Islam by browsing the internet because you don't know what's true and what's not true. You have to have some reference, some standard in order to judge whether something is meaningful information or not. Allah says in Surah Al-Hujurat, if a troublemaker comes to you with some information, verify it first so that it doesn't come to you harming people out of ignorance and then regret it. Very good advice. Make sure the info you get is sound, that it's actually true and not just some fictitious account intended for you to respond in a way they want you to respond. The Iraq War is a perfect example. The news came to you with saying, weapons of mass destruction, we are in danger, they could strike us, we must strike first. Later, when we struck first, weapons of mass destruction did not exist. Sorry, got it wrong, killed tens of thousands of people, destroyed the country, the infrastructure, which was anyhow what we wanted to do. But yeah, sorry, we got it wrong. Big deal. Didn't exist. And for some people who were skeptical to start with, yeah, they then regret that we entered into an illegal war under international law. But who cares about international law? Power, might is right. We are back to that. We shamelessly ignore international law. Does Israel care about international law, about occupied territories? Of course not. They've reduced Palestine to about 12% of what it once was, annexing more and more and more land when under the international law they couldn't do that, but so what? They want everybody else to be held accountable for allegedly not abiding potentially to the nuclear non-proliferation treatment, and they themselves never sign up to it, so they can't be held accountable. You can't inspect my weapons because I never told you I had any. But everybody else has to lay their cards on the table. It's always a double game. It's about who is in power, not what is right for everybody. The law doesn't apply equally to everybody. It is one rule for one and one for another, yes? It's the divide and rule. The Pharaoh did it. The British Empire did it. And that technique is being used. The Romans did bread and circuses to keep people entertained and happy so they wouldn't protest against the oppressive rule they were under. Some kind of distraction. And they still do it. You get films and cinema and entertainment. So you forget about the real world and you don't feel bad about it. They don't show you how some people have to live because we live a luxury life and deplete the resources of other people. They don't show you because you would feel guilty, and they want you to buy, they want you to consume. So why show you? Show your film instead, some fantasy. Very, very powerful. So the first thing, any information, double check. Don't just pass it on. It comes to you, oh, pass it on. You know, even we get these kind of messages as Muslims that this has happened or that has happened, or this chocolate is haram, be careful, or Coke has, you know, or whatever haram ingredients in it, and this scaremongering, or some other things, or there are these people who need our help and we need your... Double check. They might just be after your money, or they might want you to look like a fool, or they might you to be... Just test how you react. Don't just jump and go or forward it and pass it on. Share this with 1,000 people, you get barakah. No, you don't get barakah, because first of all you check if it's worthwhile sending it to one person. It might be a fitna. Forget the barakah. You don't get barakah for fitna. Double check. So this is the one thing. The other thing, you cannot fight fire with fire. You cannot fight magic with magic. You cannot fight lies with lies. So it's extremely important to step out of that framework. For example, if you're in the media and you're being interviewed, and you have a skilled interviewer. Okay, if it's a recorded interview, you're in troubles anyway, because they cut out the things they don't want and just use the things that fit their preconceived story. But let's say it's not recorded. The interviewer is trained to lead you in a certain direction where in the end you give the answers that he wants to hear to make his case. And if there is just you and the interviewer and you fall into that trap, that's what you will be doing. But if you realize that there is the interviewer who thinks he controls the interview, and there is you, but there is Allah who controls the whole situation, the situation changes. Because you're no longer bothered about what this interviewer wants to control or not. You suddenly become sovereign because Allah gives you sovereignty. And you simply step outside that line of questioning and answer with something else if you want to ask a question back. Start pulling the ground under his feet, make him insecure, and tell your story. Not many of us do that. Not many Muslims I have seen who have the ability, who have understood, who have learned to deal with the media in that way. But that's what you need to do. You need to replace that linear relationship on the ground with whoever you're dealing with that more triangular relationship where there is a higher power governing both. And your link to that higher power is stronger than your link to the people you're dealing with. Once you have that mindset, they cannot manipulate you or control you like they try to. Because Musa alayhi salam, initially he was scared. There's nothing wrong with that. He knew these magicians were powerful. He said to Allah, they're going to kill me. Allah says, don't worry, I'm with you. They won't touch you. He saw that they had really powerful magic. Again, he was scared. He thought, well, what am I going to do? Allah says, just throw your staff. Let me do the rest. Just face them. Just do what you have to. Just face them. Don't think of any clever move to counter them. Just be there. Let me do the rest. Become a tool through which I do the work. Throw your staff. What did the staff do? Earlier, before the Pharaoh, it was just a proof that he's also a powerful magician. That's how the Pharaoh perceived it. He said, this is really a knowledgeable magician. His staff becomes a snake, and then he picks it up again. His hand becomes white, but is healthy, which proves also that Musa was dark. Anyway, he thinks, oh, that is a powerful magician. He can do things like that. Shiny hand. Wood turn snake, turn wood. Let's call our magicians and have a contest. But at the contest, his staff didn't become just a snake and his hand become white. No. His staff swallowed up their magic. Gone. Pulled the plug. Yeah, there is this wonderful illusionary picture on the big screen engulfing you, and suddenly pulled the plug. Gone. It wasn't real. You know, now you have virtual reality. Now you have holograms. Now you can actually make things appear even more real, like they're really there. And that technology is evolving. And that technology will be used by the Dajjal system to fool people. But you can pull the plug. You can show that it's just an image, just fake. If you face up to it without trying to be drawn into it and competing with it. Very important to have a different frame of reference, to work on a different level. Not easy, because to do that, you have to also learn the ropes. You have to understand it. You have to kind of understand how the manipulation works, how words work, what words do, how they can create a situation where when they make something happen, everybody believes it, because for the last 5 years, they've been working up to it. They've been talking about it. Everybody kind of expects it to happen. So when it happens, it's just a confirmation. It's like advertising. You see subliminal images, you see advertising, you see this, you see that. When you finally go in the shop and you see the thing on the shelf, you buy it even though you don't need it, because you think you need it, because you've seen it so many times where they told you that you need it. You have to know how it works, the psychology of it. Otherwise, you can't be immune to it. That is very important. The Musa alayhi salam learned in the household of Pharaoh how they work. He grew up there. That is important. If you don't know the system, you can't fight the system. You can't deal with the system if you don't know the system. There's no point trying to be totally aloof and pretend it doesn't exist. It does. At the same time, you mustn't be part to it to the degree that it absorbs you. You must understand it, study it, learn about it, but be able to step out. Keep away. Don't be tempted by it. Don't take part in it. That is not easy, but it is necessary. Muslims have to sharpen up, because we live in a time where, yes, holding on to Islam is like holding on to a piece of hot coal. We live at a time where people are ready to betray their faith. We live at a time where people would rather hide their faith. Where at a time we discussed politics and now we're scared. We just want to talk about Iman. We used to have great discussions at universities about all kinds of topics. The Islamic financial system, the Islamic political system. Now we don't do that. We talk about tarbiyah, if anything. And even there we're scared that they know that we're Muslims and we get bad marks. Or maybe somebody will watch us. Seeing we're meant to report, everybody's meant to report on everybody else. We live in a surveillance society. In a society where people are set up against divide and rule, set up against each other to denounce each other. And where you can create a story. If they came today and arrested you under a false charge, and then they printed that in the papers or in the media, everybody believes that you were guilty of that, because they said so. Nobody will come to ask you because you're not there to answer any questions. So he wasn't really as pious as I thought he was. Look what he's done. Verify it. Don't believe anything. People make accusations, don't believe it until you are sure. Verify. So, not to be taken in by the media magic is difficult but necessary. We have to, at the same time, create our own information channels. How do you verify unless you know people whom you can ask, did that really happen? If I have a good Muslim network going, I hear about a story somewhere in another part of the world, Cape Town, something happened, I can ring a brother in Cape Town and say, did that really happen? No, brother, they're making it up. It's staged, it's a show. It wasn't like that. Ah, okay. Oh, yes, brother, it's true. Could be. But if I don't have those links, how am I going to find out? It's about everything. They want my charity to go to somewhere. How do I know it reaches? It's good to give charity, but should I not make sure that actually the charity I give goes to somewhere where it actually reaches its destination? Or am I ending up paying for somebody who is just pocketing the money? And I don't know. I still give him my charity, but no, I must make sure. I must verify. I must make it clear. That is so important. That is so important in every walk of life. Do not trust information unless it is from a reliable source. Do not believe everything you hear or see, because these days we see things with our own eyes and they're not there. We could go on about a lot of things. Talk about 9/11. You see planes going through buildings, coming out with the wings intact. You believe that? Does that happen? Can that happen? A plane melts through a building and comes out the other end? And it sets off a fire that starts somewhere else? And then a building collapses in free fall? In spite of its steel structure being fireproof and in spite of the melting temperature of that structure being much higher than the burning temperature of kerosene? And in spite of never any building having collapsed like that by fire, and not before and not after, and in spite of many buildings having been hit by aeroplanes and looking very different, it collapses in a controlled demolition explosion, and you are told it was an aeroplane? But the people say, but we saw the aeroplane. Where did you see the aeroplane? On TV. There were planes in the air? Of course there were planes in the air. There are always planes in the air. There's one right here. Means nothing. We've been served up some sort of film production. Not a very clever one, not a very good one. They could have worked on it a bit harder, because planes don't slice through buildings and then the wings stay on. It's only aluminium. It's nothing solid. Plane hits a wall and it crumbles. This plane goes through, no debris, nothing falls down. It just goes through, comes out the other end. Looks just the same. Photoshop or what? And then we think, yeah, that plane, it made this turn, it made that turn, it must have struck like this, they couldn't have flown it like that, must have been remote control. No, there was no plane that went through that building. That's what I believe. And nobody could have flown a plane in that way. Certainly nobody even with training, years of training, couldn't have flown it like that. I couldn't fly a plane like that, and I have many flying hours on my belt. Not in big planes, but I've flown hundreds of hours. I couldn't fly a plane like that, and then somebody who couldn't even land a Cessna flies a plane like that? We believe it? There are no plane parts, but there's a passport that survives that fire, that melts the steel. Yeah, powerful magic. Powerful enough to send us to war against a country that even had nothing to do with it. But who cares? First we do one country, then we do another country. We do Afghanistan, we do Iraq, then we do Libya as well. Let's try Iran next. We're in the mode. We got the hardware. We need to use it somehow so we can buy a new one after all, That's what we tax people for, so we get rich, selling weapons. Good business. War is good business. If you have no respect for people, for humanity, war is good business. Every war is preceded by war propaganda. We're talking about the media. Every war is preceded by war propaganda. You create a pretext for fighting a war. You create a mood where people will approve of the war. You create a situation where war seems inevitable. You don't just go in and fight. That's a disastrous proposition. You build up to it until you always say, we don't want a war, we don't want a war, whilst you send your troops and get ready and, oh no, we don't want a war. Until you come to a situation that you've engineered where war simply becomes inevitable. We don't want it, but we have no other option, we have no choice. Weapons of mass destruction could strike London in, half an hour. Dreadful. Can't have that. Anybody, striking London. No, let's strike Baghdad instead. Much better. Not London. Who has weapons of mass destruction? The UK has. America has. Russia has. Iraq. Yemen. Libya. Iran. But they're dangerous, aren't they? They're Muslims. They would use them if they had them. Now, we use them all the time. America has been at war for the last century. There hasn't been a year where they haven't been at war. UK, there hasn't been a year where they haven't been at war somewhere. These are war nations. Their whole economy is built on war. They are not peaceful nations. Look at Iran. Iran hasn't had, it had one war imposed on them by Iraq. It's never fought an aggressive war. It never invaded anybody over the last 100 years. Compare the record. But if you read the media, Iran's dangerous. It's a threat. UK is peaceful. Of course, we only sort things out, don't we? We stop these rogue states. America is a rogue state. Look what they did to Venezuela. You go in and pick your buddy and say, declare yourself president. We support you. And then call for real democracy. Because that elected president of theirs, you call him a tyrant. And then you can sell the country back to us because we want it again. Has resources, we need them. Who is a rogue state? So there is a media narrative and there is reality. The two are not the same. But if you just read the media from those sources, even so you might think it can't all be true. You're taken in by some of it. You need to be able to check with people who can tell you, who are there, who can tell you what it's really like. And that is difficult. That is very difficult because we do not have those connections. That will do for now. But as the next step, as I said, in the system of the Dajjal, as much as in the system of the Pharaoh, there are three pillars on a three-legged stool. If you have a three-legged stool, it's stable. You take one leg off, doesn't work. So these societies rest on three pillars. The propagandistic, educational, religious, magic, media, all that. And I will talk about education separately, inshallah, in another session. But the education system is also often used for the propaganda. You have to bear that in mind, because we are taught a history that conditions us for believing the lies of the day. Because if we knew the real history, we probably would have a different opinion of... We are not told that the whole UK economy is built on wars and the slave trade. That they all made their fortune in the slave trade and in the opium wars, forcing opium on people. That they conquered India and China in this way. That they taxed people and then with that money made them buy things that they sold back. Quite interesting if you read the history of the British Empire, where narcotics played a key role in building the empire. Just like in recent days with the American wars, narcotics played a key role. It's their key way of money laundering. Now they ask you about your bank account, all kinds of questions, just to prevent money laundering. And they do it all the time. Take the HSBC, who are now selling halal mortgages, so-called. The Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. The Opium Bank. The Colonial Opium Bank. Selling you halal mortgages. Think twice before you buy one. It's more expensive than an ordinary mortgage anyway, but we'll talk about next time about these things, about money matters, about the economy. That's the next pillar of the society. The economy, the finance, the bankers. And then finally there is the political system. These three pillars make a society. We have to deal with all those three. If we just have Islamic education but no political clout and no financial strength, we depend for everything on the others, we will not be a strong Muslim community. If we have some independence through our own shops or whatever, but we lack Islamic education, we will not use that money meaningfully. If we have some political representation but no education, no money, we will be misled to use our power in the wrong way. So it's not enough to build an viable Islamic society. We need to deal with these various really key systems. The propagandistic, the mind control, the economy, and the politics. So next time, inshallah, we will deal with the economy. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.